Hey writers, welcome back. We are halfway through this course and it's going fast. So how's your writing? Are you getting your word counts each day? What challenges are you facing? Please share those in the discussion forums and in our call on Sunday. I'd love to hear. So today I'm going to talk to you about revision. It's a huge part of writing a book. I always say that writing is 80% revision, and I mean it. I can write a first draft rather quickly, but that's only because I do this for a living. I think the more books you write, the more books you can write, and faster and better quality. But that first book takes a while. At the same time, um, once you get it done, the hard work, but the fun work, is making it pretty, perfecting it, finessing the sentences, the paragraphs, the story arc. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about revision. So let me share my screen as usual and hopefully um, do this without too much fanfare. So anyway, let's jump in and get started. All right, so I already told you today we're going to talk about revision, and I want you to think about that word a little bit. Revision means to see again. And so you might think your book is one thing, and then when you take a look at the words on the page, you might find it's another. And either the job of the writer in revision is to close that gap, or to decide that the way the book is going you actually really like and to follow it a little bit. Okay, so there are a bunch of stages to writing a book, and it's super important to understand the process. The first one is to get the rough draft done. And remember those words, rough draft. The first draft of a novel is almost always messy. It almost always needs work. And so what I like to do and what I recommend to my students is to plow through and write the first draft. Don't look back, don't edit while you go. Oftentimes, editing while you're in the midst of drafting a book is a procrastination technique. It prevents you from finishing it, and that's more psychology than writing. It's all about what you're afraid of at the end. Are you afraid that it won't get published, or if it does, it'll get panned, or that it's not very good, or, there are lots of things that we fear. Maybe it'll be successful and you don't know how to handle it, or you're afraid of the book marketing. All of these reasons are reasons why people don't finish writing a book. Part of completing that first draft is setting a time frame and trying to stick to it. So your average novel ranges between 70,000 and 100,000 words. There are nonfiction books that are shorter and there are novels that are shorter. But you decide, I'm aiming for however many words, and I want to get that first draft done in this much time, and you do the math. So if you see on the screen, if you want to write 80,000 words in 3 months, writing 5 days a week like I do, that's 1,333 words a day. Can you aim for that? What you might find is that some days you write 2,000 words, some days you write 500 words, but it averages out. So that's a really easy way to set your goal and to motivate yourself. I don't revise until the whole draft is done. I don't show chapters to my workshop group. I don't send them to a writing coach. I work on the draft, because when you're editing, it's a different energy, it's a different part of the brain, and you really will lose your focus and your momentum in drafting the book. But once you have finished the draft, set it aside for at least a few days, maybe a week, maybe a month. I wouldn't go that much longer. And then I like to print it out and actually read on the page that first draft, taking notes with a pen so I know where to edit and where to revise. And then once I've done that read through and note taking, I do a complete edit or revision myself before I send it to someone else. And usually I do a few go-throughs, I guess I would say. And then when I think the book is as strong as I can make it, that's when I send it to my early readers. I have 2 early readers for my novels. My husband is one of them, and my best friend, who is an amazing writer and reader, is the other. And they look at the book before I send it to my editor. But the first novel I wrote, I sent to a developmental editor before I even sent it to them, because a developmental editor will go through from the bird's eye view and take a look at your manuscript and see where there are plot holes, what characters need developing, any of those big picture issues, which I think are super important to take a look at. I do developmental edits, by the way, and I can recommend others as well. So I would also say that when you go about editing, there should be a process to it. And I start with the big picture edits, like where are the plot holes, what characters need deepening, where are there things missing. Then I go to the small inline edits, sentence level, paragraph level. Um, and I think that serves me well. It makes it not overwhelming to edit and revise. But I also look at some of things down and dirty in the details, like first sentence, last sentence of every chapter should be really compelling. That's one of the last edits I do is I go through each chapter and say, is the first sentence so dynamic that it pulls the reader in, and the last sentence so cliffhanging that they want to turn the page. The last stage is to just be done. It's never going to be perfect, but it'll get to really good. And I know some writers that can stay with a book for 5 or 10 years. And if you want to be a career author, that's not going to work for you. You need to do book after book. Most authors don't make a substantial, sustainable living from their books until they have at least five in the world, and sometimes more. So when you're dragging your feet on finishing, there are other things at play, fears, psychology. So dig deep and see why it is that you don't want to finish. As always, if you have questions, you know where to find me. So I hope this has been helpful, and I will look forward to hearing from you guys soon.